In this tutorial, we explain the spiritual concept of the law of karma and destiny. If you would like to view this presentation in full screen mode, please click on the full screen button on the bottom right hand side. Jeff's car was hit by a drunk driver, and he is being airlifted to a nearby hospital. Jeff will never be able to walk again. Little Nathaniel is 5, but the cancer that afflicts him will not let him live to see his 6th birthday. Allison graduated with straight A's at the top of her university class. 20 years later, life has not been kind to her. She has not been able to find a job that suits her. She is ill-treated by her husband, has been through bouts of depression, and has thoughts of committing suicide a couple of times. Sometimes, the best student in university may not do well in life. Omar was born in war-torn Darfur. Due to the country he is born in, and through no fault of his, young Omar will never have a proper education and will only know violence and hunger throughout his life. These are just some common examples of everyday stories around the world. Life hands us problems and things to be happy about, sometimes without even asking for it. When we suffer from various problems in life, we often ask the cliched question, "Lord, why did this have to happen to me?" And quite often, the cliched answer given to us is, God works in mysterious ways, and we aren't always meant to understand why things happen the way they do. But why would God make one person the child of a poor family, while the other the child of a wealthy family? And why would He let one person be born physically impaired and the other healthy? Is there some kind of universal rationale behind which all of us are granted different circumstances in our lives? A student of spiritual science will know that the answer lies in the law of karma, also known as the law of give and take. The law of karma governs all entities that were created as human beings. This means that even if a human being devolves to an animal, the law of karma is still applicable to the animal. Every action that we do generates an account. According to the law of karma, every positive deed generates a merit, and every negative deed generates a demerit or a sin. Every person has to undergo the consequences of the merits and demerits of accounts created by him. This is something like Isaac Newton's third law of motion, which states that for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. Or the old adage which says that as one sows, so shall one reap. Now let's look at an example of how the law of karma plays out. Person A swindles person B and gives him 5 units of pain. As a result, person A creates a negative account with B, and consequently, person A will have to suffer 5 units of pain from B for the negative account to be settled. Now, this is the important part. If the account cannot be settled in the current lifetime for some reason, it will need to be settled when both person A and person B reincarnate on Earth together in a future lifetime. Now, when they reincarnate together, the events will play out something like this. When person B meets person A, he will for no apparent reason have an innate dislike for person A, and he will look for every opportunity to give pain to person A. And when person A does get the full 5 units of pain because of person B, he will wonder why person B is so intent on hurting him. But little do they both know that the answer lies in an account that was created in a previous lifetime. As soon as the account is settled, there may be a change in person B's attitude to A. Let's look at another typical life example. Mark buys his buddy Chris a couple of drinks at the bar, and the next day Chris returns the favor by buying Mark the same couple of drinks at the same bar. The account seems to be settled at a transactional level. However, both men incur a sin or a demerit for putting an impression that alcohol is good in the other person's mind and for the consumption of alcohol. The reason that the act is a sin is because, from a spiritual perspective, By consuming alcohol, we reduce the subtle sattva component in a person and increase the tama component in a person. Now, an increase in the tama component in a person increases the overall spiritual impurity in the environment. Do refer to the article on sattva, raja and tama on our website. On the other hand, selflessly helping a poor person in need will generate a merit. Over many lifetimes, we have all accumulated accounts of both merits and demerits. This is known as the accumulated account or the sanchit karma in Sanskrit. Now, the law of karma and how the give and take account plays out is complex and depends on various factors. These factors also determine the intensity of the account created, whether positive or negative. Now, the factors include, and most importantly, the intention behind the act. For example, killing a person for money as opposed to killing a person in self-defense. The severity or extent of the act, the situation at the time, the happiness or anguish faced by the person affected, and finally, who has been affected, whether it's an average person, or a seeker of God, or a saint, or a spiritual organization for that matter. Killing a saint constitutes the biggest sin or demerit. Depending on the intensity of the merits or demerits that one incurs in one's lifetime, after death, one goes to either the positive or negative subtle regions of the universe. On our website, we've actually explained about where we go after death. Do refer to it. For people who do not know about the law of karma, it can lead to the "why me, Lord" syndrome, which then results in a lack of faith and the feeling that life is unfair. But if we were to understand this law and how it influences our lives, at least we could have a philosophical view of why bad things happen to us, and at least try not to create any more negative accounts. As per the law of karma, unless we settle all our accounts, we cannot gain liberation from the cycle of birth and death, and therefore we keep getting reincarnated on earth to settle our give and take accounts. Every time we are born or reincarnated on the earth plane of existence, we bring with us a small part of the accumulated accounts in our sanchit karma to settle. In this slide, the accumulated account is represented by that big long grey bar on top. The red portion in the bar represents the amount of accounts to be settled in the current lifetime. The accounts that we have to settle in our current lifetime is known as our destiny. Destiny is also known as prarabdha in Sanskrit. This pie chart shows the proportion of our lives which is destined versus the life which is within our own free will. Through spiritual research, we have found that for an average person, in the current era of Kaliyuga, 65% of his life is destined and 35% of his life is willful action. This means that approximately 65% of events that happen in our lives we have no control over. Now, in the case of the person's first birth in the universe, willful action at that time was 100% and destiny was 0. But then as we begin to create accounts by our willful action, and as we progress towards the end of Kaliyuga, also known as the era of strife, and a person's last birth, the proportion of destined actions will be close to 100% and willful actions next to nil. The spiritual purpose of our lives is to settle and complete our destiny, and subsequently, our accumulated account. Therefore, experiencing happiness or sadness according to our destiny. And the second and most important aspect is to do spiritual practice, to grow spiritually and therefore come out of the cycle of birth and death. Let's look at an example to understand destined events and events due to our own free will. Now here a person parks in a proper parking zone, obeying all the traffic rules. And while he is in his office, a tree falls on his car. This is an example of an event which one has no control over and is typical of a destined event. Now in this example, a person drives home absolutely drunk, in spite of knowing that it is wrong to do so. And sure enough, what happens? He hits the tree. This is an event which happens due to a person not exercising his free will properly. All major events in life are mostly 100% destined events. These are events such as the family we are born to, the person we marry, the major illnesses that we have, the time of our death. Destiny is considered a spiritual root cause of both major happy events and painful events in our lives. Apart from just negative accounts with other people creating problems in life, there are other spiritual elements which can influence us as part of our destiny. The first and most commonly experienced problem by people is distress caused by ancestors who have departed and are in the afterlife. We have covered the reasons why this happens in depth on our website. The second is where people are affected by or possessed by ghosts. Both ghosts and departed ancestors can and do cause various problems in our life at a physical, psychological, and spiritual level. Every person is affected by these problems, whether they know it or they don't know it. A reduction of vital energy within us causes us to be lethargic. People who experience this problem complain of waking up tired in the morning, even after a good night's rest. A block in the spiritual energy system, or the kundalini, within our bodies. This can cause various ailments. For example, a block in the anahat, or heart chakra, without necessarily having any clinical signs. Black magic, or voodoo, is a reality, and when done on a person, it can have very damaging effects. Distressing vibrations in the premise that we work and live in. It can cause problems such as ill feeling among workers getting sick often, and very low efficiency. Another interesting fact is that the person that one marries is generally the person that one has the most give and take account with. In this chart obtained through spiritual research, we show an approximate percentage of the give and take accounts across various relationships of an average person. Through spiritual research, we have found that even the compatibility between two people is decided mainly by spiritual factors. As you can see from the table, psychological and physical factors account for just a small percentage of the reasons why couples will be compatible or not. The main spiritual factor is the give and take account, or the destiny between two people. Depending on the severity of destiny, a person's destiny can be categorized as mild, medium, or severe. Let's look at a few examples of destiny as per their severity. Mild destiny can be considered as minor illnesses and more than average efforts required to get a life partner. Medium destiny constitutes major financial losses, major marital problems, and the inability to have children. And severe destiny would include major accidents, severe disabilities, and untimely death. As destiny is the main spiritual cause of problems in life, the only way to overcome one's adverse destiny is by doing spiritual practice. When we do spiritual practice as per the 6 basic principles, we begin to burn our destiny. Do refer to other tutorials to understand the 6 basic principles of spiritual practice. Depending on the type of destiny, higher amounts of spiritual practice need to be done to nullify it. In the case of severe destiny, only the grace of a saint can nullify destiny. Please refer to the website to understand who is a saint and what spiritual practice one can do to start your spiritual journey. Let's take a look at an example of how spiritual practice can help nullify our destiny. Remember our previous example where A swindles B, and now that A has to suffer 5 units of pain from B for the account to be settled? Well, if A starts spiritual practice as per the 6 basic principles, then the spiritual energy generated from the spiritual practice goes towards nullifying the give and take impression in B's mind, and B then forgets about the account that he has with A. Quite often, when a seeker starts spiritual practice in earnest as per the 6 basic principles, the spiritual energy generated goes towards settling accounts. It is for this reason that while two seekers at the same spiritual level may put in the same effort and time in their spiritual practice, their spiritual growth will mostly differ. The spiritual practice of a person who has more negative accounts will be used to nullify the negative accounts first before being used for spiritual growth. At this point, I would like to illustrate how we get trapped in the cycle of birth and death due to our willful action. Let's say a person has 100 units of accumulated account or sanchit karma. Now in the current lifetime, the same person is slated to complete 6 units of destiny from his sanchit karma. This means that after the current lifetime, he should be left with just 94 units to settle. And that means that's roughly about 16 to 17 lifetimes before he should be able to settle his entire sanchit karma. However, practically, this does not happen. Due to willful action, a person generally creates 10 more units of accounts. So at the point in time of death, the person goes back with 104 units. This means that one continues to get stuck in the cycle of birth and death due to improper use of one's free will or willful action. We are now in Kaliyuga, the era of strife. The element of pain in one's destiny is most likely to increase as one keeps on getting born in Kaliyuga. If we use our willful action to do spiritual practice, then the result would be that within 1 to a few lifetimes, we could get out of the cycle of birth and death. I'd like to share with you another example in this regard. Nicole takes Kristen to a satsang. An impression of the benefits of spiritual practice is created in Kristen's mind. Kristen starts spiritual practice and then begins to grow spiritually. Here, no account is created, no merits or demerits, as the activity and the actions are in line with our basic purpose of life, which is to grow spiritually. This is an example of how willful action, when used towards spiritual practice, does not incur any accounts. There are many planes of existence. However, Earth is the only plane of existence where one can do spiritual practice and grow spiritually, and thereby settle our accumulated account or sanchit karma. It is for this reason, to get a human birth is very precious. The purpose of our lives is not to create merits or demerits, but to go beyond them with spiritual practice. Merits and demerits both keep us in the cycle of birth and death. Do refer to our article on where we go after death to understand the importance of our time on earth. If you want your spiritual practice to be effective, it is important that it conforms to the 6 basic principles of spiritual practice. And if spiritual practice is done sincerely, regularly, and in progressively higher steps, then it is possible for a person not only to overcome all his destined accounts, but also his entire accumulated account in one lifetime itself. If you think that this tutorial will help your near and dear ones, please do forward the link to them. That's all for this tutorial. Thank you for joining us.